Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyle Lancaster. I'm the Carlsbad Parks and Recreation Director, and we have a Parks and Recreation Master Plan workshop for you this morning. I want to get started right on time and also advise you that we have Nilay Bhatt joining me. He's a principal with Pros Consulting, and we have several other city staff and Pros Consulting staff in the background to assist with answering questions along the way. If you do have questions, please enter them in the Q&A box. There will be other opportunities for comments in the chat box, but again, questions should go in the Q&A. I want to go ahead and start with the purpose of the workshop. And that is essentially to share the master planning process with you and how you can participate in that, but specifically to obtain your input on Parks and Recreation offerings in Carlsbad and whether or not your needs have changed since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are, of course, still in the midst of the pandemic to some degree, and that's largely why we are doing this workshop in a virtual setting. About 20 months ago, we had to put a pause on this process. We had started a few months prior to that in early 2020, and in fact, had a couple of in-person public workshops to gather input in February of 2020, and then the pandemic hit in March, and our activities and responsibilities were redirected to address the needs resulting from the pandemic. So we've had to, again, basically put a pause on this process, but we're ready to kick it off again. We want to touch base with you, see if anything has changed before we move forward. And this is one step in that public input process. There will be other opportunities as well, as Nilay will describe in a few moments here. So moving on to what is included and what is not included today, and as part of this process, it really is a system-wide Parks and Recreation master planning process that we're talking about. It's a comprehensive look at all of our parks inventory and our programs, and we will be taking a deep dive really to determine what perhaps needs to be changed, what needs to be added, and it'll be largely based on the input received from you and the balance of the community. It's going to serve as a roadmap to our future decision making, and it will be, again, all park sites and recreation programs and services. Ideally, the plan is updated about every 5 years, and that's per national accreditation standards. But because of the pandemic, we're looking more like a 7+ year process this particular go around. In the future, we're going to target that 5-year mark. I will say, however, that we have been making steady progress on the existing master plan. That has not swayed even over these last 20 months. You'll see photo illustrations of that fact shortly. And again, it has been a very useful tool for us in developing not only capital improvement program projects, but expanding and creating new recreation programs. So what's not included in this process? It does not include non-open space properties, residential properties as an example. It also does not include site-specific plans for any one park. For new developments, we do in fact create master plans that are specific for that site. Veterans Memorial Park is the most recent example of that. It is still going through that full master planning process. We have done the public outreach for that park. It is now in the permitting stages with our planning division. It will go to the Planning Commission and have Coastal Commission review as well in 2022, and we'll be taking it to City Council for final adoption. Again, other parks that have master plans would include Aviara and Poinsettia, where we've recently completed projects that you'll see in a moment. But this particular process today is more global in nature. It is, again, non-site specific. This also does not include trails, preserves, or beaches. And that's because we have a separate trails master plan, which was adopted by the City Council in August of 2019. We have a preserve management plan, which was adopted by the City Council just this very week on Tuesday. and that is for another 5-year period. And then in regard to beaches, 6 of the 7 miles of coastline in Carlsbad is owned and controlled by state Parks and Recreation. So we only have a mile in the north, and again, it is not subject to this particular master planning process. Moving on to desired outcomes for today. We want to, of course, maximize our community engagement. And as I mentioned, this is just one of those ways. There will be other opportunities for you to contribute as we go along here in the next few months. And again, Nilay will dive into that deeper. We also want to integrate the learnings from agencies nationwide. And that's one of the reasons why PROS Consulting was selected to assist in this master planning process. They are experts in this field, and they are recognized not only nationally, but internationally. So we have learned a lot as a staff, and we're able to share quite a bit of their experience and teachings with the community. We also want to be able to offer a diversity of offerings and ability to access them. We want to be able to reach as many of the community members as possible. So that is our goal in this process. And we also want to be financially sustainable through wise budgeting practices and trying to meet as many of the objectives as practical. Doesn't mean that we're going to be able to address everything, but we certainly want to do as much as we reasonably can. And this will be a dynamic and realistic strategic action plan that's attached to the master plan. And again, we use that as a checklist of sorts where we can say, okay, great, we've addressed this one, now let's move on to the next. And then we'll circle back and see if we need to do any fine tuning, or we need to revisit a particular project or program. So again, it's a dynamic plan that continues to evolve and have life for, again, the full 5 and in some cases plus year period. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Nilay and ask him to go through some of the master planning process, including a overview of the 2020 input we received, and again, add on to it with some additional polls that he'll be taking with you. Nilay, please take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carl, and good morning, everybody. I am here in Indiana where my high today is 30 degrees, so I would have loved to be with you in person today. But we've been fortunate over the years, as Kyle mentioned, to have led the previous master plan as well, the needs assessment, and then the master plan, which led to CAPRA accreditation, and then also worked with the team on the Pine Avenue, Aviara, Poinsettia Park plans too, and are back here now for the master plan update. So have a fairly in-depth familiarity with the team, one of the best teams I've ever worked with in the country, an outstanding project manager in Mick, a terrific communications team. And so what we're looking to do here is continue that sustained excellence that Carlsbad has demonstrated over the years in not just planning, but implementing the plans as well. So before we start getting into a little more of the input, we would just love to know who is here in the audience with us today. So I'm about to open a live poll for all of you, and I would love to get a sense of who is with us in the audience. So these are the questions. What age range are you in? How many people are participating with you in this meeting? And which is the zip code that you currently live in? In any of these cases, if you don't have a choice, especially with the zip codes, by all means, please type that in the chat box as well for us to see. See the responses coming in quickly. That's great. Right, 2/3 of you've already answered. Great job. Waiting on some of the others. Number of them, 35 to 54, 55 to 74, and 75 plus. We'll give you about 10 seconds more, everybody. What age range are you in? What zip code do you live in? How many people are participating with you in this virtual meeting right now? All right, folks, going once, Going twice. And oh, I see a couple more coming in. I'll give you a few seconds more. I think some people just joined and started answering as well. So I'll give you all a few seconds more, folks. You could quickly tell us a little bit more. All right, last call. And here we go. Let's see the results here. 8 segment standpoint, we see the majority are 55 to 74, which is 56%, followed by a third are ages 35 to 54, and the rest are 75 plus. About 3 out of 4 of you are watching this by yourself. The rest have at least one other person watching with you. That's great. In terms of the zip codes, 92008 is by far the top one, followed by 92009 and 92011. All right, that is very helpful. Thank you, everybody. So we're looking at this master plan and as an update in 3 major steps. Where are we today? Where are we going to go? And how will we get there? So a big part of what we've been assessing and what you're really going to help us identify is where are we today and where do we want to go? Our work comes in at that point to then take all your input in a number of ways that I'm about to show you to help prioritize that, translate that into what it means from a capital development planning standpoint, a recreation program plan, a senior recreation program plan, and ultimately the financial components leading to the strategic action plan, which becomes really a living, breathing document. So a number of the mediums that are going to be used and have been used as a part of the process. These include stakeholder interviews and focus groups. We started this earlier, as Kyle mentioned. So we met with a number of different user groups, had interviews with staff, multiple stakeholders as well. We had in-person public meetings early on, and we're following up with these virtual ones. We also had staff, as they were touring the parks, just reach out and have intercept surveys with people that were participating or recreating in the park at that time. All this input then is going to be collected, and with the staff and communications team, we will be crafting a statistically reliable survey that's going to be mailed randomly, anonymously to households within Carlsbad to get your input. And an identical questionnaire will also be launched through SurveyMonkey on the project website, which is carlsbadparksplan.com. I would love for all of you to be able to bookmark the site, keep revisiting this as well. As you can see, this is the one-stop shop for the master plan. You'll see the previous plan that was done as well. You'll see the key events at the bottom with the public workshops today, where you could have registered from here. As of now, we have already uploaded the video from the previous meeting that happened 2 nights ago on this project website as well. We will do the same after today's meeting is done. And we will have the entire presentation that we're making right now also available on the website. So if you want to be transparent, we want you to follow along as the plan is developed. The survey findings, our assessment work, all of that will be here. And if you think of anything else that you feel you didn't share, you forgot, I usually leave a meeting and I think back and I say, I wish I'd said this one more thing. If you have something like that, please go to the project website, carlsbadparksplan.com. We have an open-ended comment box, and we would continue to love hearing from you, not just today, but throughout this planning process. That's really where this plan comes from. It's a community-driven plan. Your values and your input will drive the outcomes. So speaking of community, I want to very quickly share with you just where the demographics and trends are going. This is using a service called ESRI, Environmental Services Research Institute. They have population projections based on 2021 and then 5-year projections going forward using straight line regression. And it's looking at a steadily growing population, at the same time, an aging population as well. If you look at the blue and the red bars, the largest population segment going forward is going to be, and I refuse to call them seniors, they don't behave like it, but it's the active adult population. The 55 to 74 and 75 plus combined are projected to be almost 40% of the population in the next 15 years. At the same time, you have a very steady sort of population base with the orange and the blue bars that you see at the bottom. That's your under 17 and the 18 to 34. So kids, teens, young families, and so on. So very much as we look at this, there's an aging component we'll be mindful of, but it's also focused on a multi-generational experience for what we provide going forward. You continue to diversify marginally as well. So by 2036, 1 out of 4 people in Carlsbad will be some other race besides what the census calls white alone. And as an ethnicity, about 1 in 5 people will also be of Hispanic Latino ethnicity as well. Different race and ethnic groups have different preferences from a recreation standpoint too. And that's part for us to keep in mind as well as we go forward. So then we looked at the market participation, the market potential index based on a group called Sports and Facility Industry Association. They are the national association that tracks participation and spending in every one of the major activities. And the ones they've tracked here, the orange bar is the national average of 100. Anything above or below that clearly is how much more the population in Carlsbad engages in that particular activity. Now, some things that they haven't tracked MPI for are things like cricket, table tennis, pickleball, and so on. But we recognize some of these sports are growing. So just because something isn't tracked here doesn't mean it's not growing or isn't important. This is just the data that they currently have. As you can see, a number of sports are anywhere from 5 to 40% higher than national averages. From a fitness standpoint, you know this, you are an extremely active fitness and wellness focused community. Every single one of these activities are anywhere from 19 to 49% higher than national average, which is phenomenal. And then I want to get a sense now from your standpoint of some of the usage and the metrics with respect to parks. So as a quick recap, you're growing to some degree, definitely aging, diversifying from a race and ethnicity standpoint, heavy participation in sports, and extremely active from a fitness and wellness standpoint as well. So with that in mind, my next poll is about to open here. And this is about usage, quality, and access. So how often do you use any Carlsbad Parks programs, trails, or facilities? I want you to choose the top 3 programs that you participate in the most. Do you live within a 10-minute walk to a park or a trail? Just yes or no. And then how do you travel to your nearest local park? These are the 4 questions. Take your time. We'd love to hear and see what your responses are. Just a reminder again as well, if you have questions, please put that in the Q&A portion as well. Okay, I see about 80% of you have responded. We'll give you a little bit more time. All right, going once, going twice. There we go. Let's see the results here. So how often do you use any Carlsbad parks, programs, trails, facilities? 89, almost 90% use weekly, and the rest at least monthly. Very high frequency participation. That's great. Programmatic standpoint, sports leagues, about 25% have said that. Many have chosen the option of other as well. And as I see in the chat box, I see a number of different activities here. I see people talking of pickleball, using trails and other bike and ped paths as well. Walking trails, play pickleball 4 to 5 times a week. Hiking is one of the main activities. I hike. We use tennis courts with pickleball equipment, Pine Avenue Garden. That's great. 71% live within a 10-minute walk to a park or a trail. Nationally, the average for that is 55% for a 10-minute walk. So this is certainly higher than national averages. But again, keeping up with the Carlsbad level and the Carlsbad way, this would be one of the factors that we also look at in the master plan, is increasing access to everybody where possible within a 10-minute walk. Most of you drive, about 68% drive, 38% walk, and a few of you bike as well. Okay, then, so as I look beyond this, this is the next poll that I want to look at. And this is speaking to communication and barriers to participation. As I said, I've done 150 plus of these plans all over the place. And your communications team is by far one of the best I've ever worked with. The attention to detail, the focus on community engagement, even the mechanisms we've used throughout as well have been very detailed and have frankly been very effective in getting engagement. So what we want to be able to do with this is continue to get a sense from you of your preferred means of communication and what are the barriers to participation that prevent you from participating more often. So let's look at these two options here. Your 3 preferred means of communication, and then barriers to participation. All right, I see about a third of you have responded so far, waiting on the others. The top 3 preferred means of communication, and then the barriers to participation. All right, folks, we'll just give you a few seconds more here. I see about 2/3 of you have participated already. preferred means of communication, and barriers to participation. All right, folks, going once, going twice. Here we go. So in terms of preferred means of communication, email by far was the number one, 96%, followed by 54% speaking to the City of Carlsbad website, and an equal number, then a third of them talking of text notification of call, and an equal number, 25% speaking to social media, signage in the parks, and an app. In terms of barriers to participation, lack of facilities, about 54% mentioned that. About 30% said, I don't know what's offered, and 25% said not enough choices. Okay. I have one more here as well. And I'm going to also speak to a question here I see from Stephen Pierce too. This is about the entire system-wide Parks and Recreation Master Plan and not any one singular activity. However, what we're about to show here now is usage and needs for existing or new amenities. So any improvements you have, any new developments you would like to see, this would be the time to share that as well, so that we look at this from not just one single park or a program, as Kyle spoke to earlier, but the entire City of Carlsbad's overarching parks and recreation offerings. So here we go. What are the new amenities, improvements, developments that you'd like to see? Existing amenities or facilities and outdoor sports courts would include any of those from pickleball, basketball, or tennis. Sports fields would include any rectangular or diamond sports as well. All of these options limit you to 10 choices, so it's not realistic to include every individual activity. But if you are here to speak to anything specific, by all means, please put that as other and enter that in the chat box as well. I want to also know the top 3 existing programs you want the city to provide more of. And then lastly, your satisfaction with the overall quality you receive from Carlsbad Parks and Recreation. Seeing through your comments in the chat as well. I see a few. Jim mentions pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. Let's embrace the sport. It is definitely one of the, if not the fastest growing sport. And actually the first time I ever heard of pickleball was during the previous master plan in Carlsbad, which then resulted in the dedicated pickleball courts we have in Poinsettia. So I know the staff hears you and I know they implement as well. I see Therese talking about bocce ball courts and additional community gardens. Georgia talks about needing line dance. Marcy mentions converting tennis courts at Poinsettia to pickleball. Robin mentions actually communication is excellent with regular emails being sent out by the city manager. Marcy mentions too, city needs to look at higher demand for pickleball over tennis, more pickleball. Patricia talks about more open space for hiking. Few of you have mentioned pickleball again as well. Marcy, again, as I mentioned earlier, pickleball isn't listed because it's part of sports courts and we couldn't list every single activity individually. I see more bike trails, more connected trail system, a bicycle pump track, more pickleball courts, higher level of line dancing, more hiking and special events. This is great, folks. Keep them coming. I see about 60% of you have responded to all the questions. This is the last major polling question, so take your time. We want to ensure every one of you that want to share your input in this has a chance to do so. Okay, folks. Here we go. About 70% of you have responded. We'll give you all a few seconds more as well, if anybody would want to. All right, going once, going twice. Here we go. I see the results here. So top 3 new facility amenities. I see about 35% speak about more shade structures. That's something I'm seeing a lot in all over California and around the country as well. As people spend more time outside, summers can get hotter especially. I see 39% for sports fields. I see about 35% for a performing arts center as well. In terms of existing facility amenities, outdoor sports courts, 52%. In reading through the comments, seems like most of them spoke specifically to pickleball in that case. I see about 17% for dog parks, 22% for an outdoor pool in that as well, another 17% for sports fields. For the top 3 existing programs that people want to see as well, I see the number 1 here is 39% are senior 50 plus activities, 35% speak to sports leagues, and 30% speak to just other classes as well. And then lastly, in terms of level of satisfaction, about 74% of you have said you are somewhat or very satisfied. About 9% are neutral, and the rest are somewhat or very dissatisfied. So this is very helpful information, everybody. We now have one last question for all of you, but this is more open-ended. And I would like to have you type in the chat box, please. This is about your top priority outcome, right? With every plan, no matter where I do it, the wants and needs are always much more than sometimes the resources that are available. So to help us prioritize both in terms of what happens and perhaps how soon can some of those things happen, I'd love for you to type in one and only one top priority outcome of this master plan. So in the next 5 years, if you would want this master plan to help you achieve one thing, what would that be? It can be very specific of things that someone said shade at pickleball courts, or it can be very broad as in, more sporting amenities, programs, or whatever it might be. So here's your chance, your top priority outcome. Please type that in the chat box. What is the one thing you would want this master plan to help achieve? See, Jim's mentioned more pickleball courts. Shirley talks about allow all tennis courts to be used for pickleball. I see Therese talking of community gardens. Georgia, shade at Poinsettia pickleball. Bill speaks about add more courts or convert tennis courts. Marcy, top priority is pickleball courts at Poinsettia. With shade structures, more pickleball. Lisa talks about prioritize room for walkers and bikers over cars on the coast road. Dedicated outdoor pickleball courts with shade. Tennis courts allow pickleball to use. See a lot of more pickleball as well. Mel makes a good point here. Carlsbad is the mecca for biotech and golf, and let's make it a pickleball destination. More pickleball. Lynn talks about continued virtual programs, cooking, history, and art. Danielle speaks to a bike park similar to the Sweetwater Bike Park in Bonita and Chula Vista. Douglas talks of more pickleball and multi-purpose courts. Sarah speaks to more wildlife native spaces for walking, hiking, and wildlife. Robin speaks to trash and litter being a problem, more containers, and a means to have that picked up regularly. Jim speaks to additional sports fields and an expanded joint use with Carlsbad School District to include the use of high school's fields. Howard speaks to more parks and open spaces, especially in the Southwest Quadrant, which is deficient. Marcy speaks to convert tennis courts to pickleball. Bob speaks to more baseball and soccer fields, max out with field space already. And if you don't have, you turn kids away if you don't have room for them. Caroline speaks to more community gardens. Douglas speaks to pickleball. National championships are being played in Indian Wells. Patricia speaks to more natural open space for Carlsbad as well. Okay. So some quick things as a recap from what we heard. Outdoor sports courts were among the top three, were by far the number one then for the top three existing facilities the city wanted. At that time as well, a lot of mention was on pickleball. We also had a number of people speak to outdoor rectangular sports fields at the time, followed by an outdoor pool. Same time, in terms of existing facilities, an indoor gym and fitness center, more sports fields, and then a community rec center, outdoor splash pad and pool, and a bike park were fairly high. And programmatically, people wanted more classes, more senior 50+ activities and sports leagues, followed by special events. And lastly, in terms of barriers, lack of awareness or lack of facilities were the top two, followed by location or not enough choices. So a lot of similarities from that time as well. I recognize, as we see around the country too, that with the number of indoor offerings closed, outdoor activities from basketball, tennis, pickleball, all of those, walking, jogging, etc., have seen a significant uptake as well. And so we recognize that too. What I want in terms of the update here is for Kyle to then share actions from the current master plan that have already been done, and then how that moves forward. So Kyle.
Thank you, Nilay. And to speak to how those actions come about, it's really a fourfold process. One is obtaining the community vision, which again is part of what we're doing today. And when we go back to our existing 2015 master plan, that community vision started in 2013 and 14 and led to the adoption of the master plan in March of 2015. From there, we took that and developed work plans for the department and the divisions, whether it be capital improvement program projects or recreation programming changes. And then we made the budget requests to City Council, and the allocations were made accordingly. And once we had the funding available, we could actually go and implement many of these projects and programs. So I don't want to spend a lot of time, but I do want to use several photos to illustrate that the previous community input has been utilized. We've heard it and we've taken it to heart. And starting with Leo Creel Ranch, I have a couple of illustrations here where we've taken a stable facility that was previously unusable and we've converted it into indoor meeting space, recreation area that can be used for weddings, for camps, for business meetings. It's a tremendous venue. If you haven't been there, I really encourage you to check it out. It's beautiful, it's a historic setting. And with that same project, we also were recognizing the historic elements. And one of those was a chicken coop that no longer stood on the property, but we needed restrooms. So what we did is we created a restroom facility that mimicked a chicken coop that previously stood on the property. And it's really a vital need because we have a lot of tours that go to Leo Creel Ranch. And with the increased meeting space that I just showed you, we also have more weddings, more meetings, more camps, and we need those restroom facilities. So we were able to, again, add this to the project and recognize the historical value as well as the practical value. So again, one example there, and moving on to others. We actually had a couple of components here next to my office. I'm in the senior center, and this is Pine Avenue Community Center, lit up there in the foreground. Beautiful newer facility. Has a gymnasium, upstairs team center. Next shot will show you the gym being heavily utilized. And it also has gardens in the foreground of that previous aerial shot. And this aerial shot here now has it in the foreground as well. And so the community gardens in this case hadn't yet grown in. This was taken shortly after the development. If you look at it today, every one of those plots is taken, thoroughly grown in. The balance of the landscape is really beautiful. I expect that plaza area you can see towards the lower left-hand side of the screen to be more heavily utilized as we're coming out of the pandemic and we have more events and activities. So again, really a great addition to that particular park. And some of those items were, again, brought out in the community input process. Community gardens, as an example, outdoor meeting spaces, gathering areas, picnic shelters, the indoor spaces for the gym as well. All of those were previously recognized as items desired by the community. So Neil, you can go to the next set of slides. Poinsettia Park also was a few-fold in creating additional amenities that the community wanted. In this case, playgrounds were high on the list, and we had an older playground at this facility, and it was only a single age group. We have taken this and made a much larger playground with catering to 2 age groups, which is more the industry standard, 2 to 5 and then 5 to 12-year-olds. And we also, of course, created our pickleball court complex, 6 courts, and they are very definitely heavily utilized. We recognize that, and we have heard your comments today. Certainly, we know that it is a growing sport, but we did not have these courts back in 2013, 2014, when we were taking community input. This is a result of that last master planning process. And then additionally at Poinsettia Park, we heard that outdoor sports fields were in need and in demand, and frankly, we're still hearing that as well. We have a greater need than demand than we have fields available, and this achieved part of that objective, this arena sports field, but we recognize there are still more opportunities. So we are taking this information to heart. In addition to this particular sports field, we believe that Robertson Ranch may be another opportunity for sports fields, perhaps pickleball courts as well. These are the types of elements that we want to keep in mind as we're moving forward to those site-specific master plans that I talked about earlier. So if we go to Aviara, which actually was developed about the same time as the Poinsettia Park improvements we just showed, this is an outlook area that is currently shown as facing to the east, and it's got a great view that way. But if you flip it around, it actually has a great view to the ocean as well from that site. It's currently in this photograph staged for a wedding, but it can be used for a multitude of purposes. Small concerts, again, retirement functions, a wedding. We use it for our camps, and this was directly as a result of a desire for more outdoor gathering spaces. So it not only has this turf area, but adjacent to it also has a catering support room with an outdoor barbecue, and you can see that in the next shot. Also includes a restroom facility, which, as I referenced before, is a vital need. So we make sure that we incorporate that with our site-specific master planning processes. So moving to more recent projects and developments, including those that have transpired in the last 20 months or so, Calavera Hills Community Park Gateway. This was a site that was originally to be a fire station at the corner of Glasgow and Carlsbad Village Drive. And when that fire station was resited to the Robertson Ranch area, we were able to use this as an entryway or gateway to the park. And so it will have a passive trail looping around it with these outdoor exercise equipment stations, which there again was something that came out of the results of the last master planning process. And we're really eager to have this open and see it utilized because we don't have these types of exercise stations elsewhere in our inventory. And so this will be a project that's opened up in the next several weeks here. As you can tell, the majority of the construction is complete. We're addressing some final punch list items, and we hope to get it open to you again very shortly. And then even more recently, we have the Poinsettia Community Park Dog Park that is currently still under construction. This is from a few weeks ago when the mass grading was occurring, and it's now been a bit more fine-tuned. They've actually started the foundation for the restroom facility there. I saw someone in a chat previously indicate they wanted restrooms adjacent to the pickleball courts, and lo and behold, that's exactly what this project entails. There's a small parking lot. Basically, it would be just to the north of this photo that will serve the dog park, but also the pickleball courts, and have a closer restroom facility. So you don't have to either, when you're playing pickleball, go through to the middle of the park, or when you have a dog, go through with your dog in tow, which technically is not allowed. You can go directly from the parking lot to the dog park, and then parking lot to the restroom without having to, again, further go through the park with your dog. So in this case, again, dog parks were a significant need that was brought up by the community. And we not only have this dog park in construction, we also have a dog park under initial planning process for Village H South. So that will be probably another several years off, but we're looking at, again, not only the current needs, but those in the future. And to speak to one of the other previous chats, or a few of them, we do have a bike park slated for Veterans Memorial Park that I indicated was undergoing the final master planning process. That is an element that is fully expected to be achieved. And again, it's a matter of us getting the necessary permits and approvals to proceed with then construction documents and actually get that bid and constructed. So we've heard that and we've implemented it. Likewise, on recreation programming, we have taken your information. We've expanded multiple programs, including this one is culinary arts. And this is actually a photo that's taken in the upstairs of that Pine Avenue Community Center we displayed earlier. That's normally a teen center, but it also doubles as this culinary stage for these classes. So that's something we didn't have, again, just 6-7 years ago. And other programs that we've expanded as well would include our basketball camps and classes. And so if we go to the next slide, Nile, you'll see that, again, this is from, it appears, Calavera Hills Gymnasium, but we also have Stagecoach Gym and now the new Pine Avenue Community Gym, where we've been able to expand basketball programs. And during this pandemic period, we've actually expanded to outdoor courts as well. So it's something that was desired at that time, and we've implemented it. In addition, there's been other recreation programs that we have expanded, including wellness and health and fitness. This is of our Superheroes obstacle race that's held at Algo Norte Community Park. It's always a fun experience. I'm there each year, typically in the fall, and just really enjoy watching these families participate. Something that I find a lot of community benefit from. And so we've expanded not only those programs, but we've also introduced some new programs as well, including a couple at Leo Carrillo Ranch. This is a cultural arts program that we've teamed up with our library and cultural arts department on. And this happens to display several of the camp participants' illustrations of Leo's horse at the time. So it's just one example of several programs we've expanded. And another would be a educational component to our environmental programs. This happens to be at Leo Carrillo as well. And it is a radical reptiles camp. And again, very popular with the kids, something we didn't have several years ago, but has really taken off and grown. And so we look forward to other ideas that come about as part of this process. And then jumping back to a few other expanded programs, and I'm going to wrap up. Seniors, we have a walking program, which is what this is an illustration of. You can see there at Agua Hedina Lagoon in this case, but they take various walking trips via either trails or through parks, and really enjoy the camaraderie together as a aging adult population, as Nile would say. So again, one of those examples, but on the other side, if you will, more towards the younger spectrum, then you have the teen programs that have also expanded. And this is a particular shot of an awards ceremony, but we also have multiple programs that have increased since the last planning process, including a gaming area that was not available prior to the Pine Avenue Community Center being constructed. So in that teen center, there is a gaming lounge, and that's also a very popular activity now for teens. So just wrapping up here, we've also expanded our special events, and this happens to be just within the last month of our Festival of Lanterns, which occurred at Alga Norte Aquatic Center. This only came about over the last 2 years, and it had to be held virtually last year due to the pandemic. We were able to hold it in person, and we had several hundred turn out for this activity. And it was in recognition of the month of gratitude in November. And again, just a really endearing moment to be out there and experience it, and have several singers and others making recitals of poems, and just a time of reflection for the community to come together. So very important, and something that, again, we are rather proud of, frankly, and feel like we're addressing those needs. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back to Nile to conclude the presentation, and then we'll see if there's any few questions that haven't already been answered by our team in the background. Nile, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Kyle. It's fun to always see these pictures, and I'll never forget, I was at San Diego Airport this one time after a project, and at night, one of the folks came up to me and said, "I am from Carlsbad, and thank you for the plan through which we got the first dedicated pickleball courts." And that was really cool to see. So, you know, as we look forward as well, I hear all of you, and I hear the needs. We had another group that advocated heavily for BMX and bike park in the first meeting. We have pickleball and community gardens and others. This is great. Show up and make your voice be heard. What we're going to do with this is capture all this input, and then, as I said earlier, craft the statistically valid survey that's going to go out there throughout the city, but randomly and anonymously to users and non-users within Carlsbad. That's going to be the single most important data set that will help drive the priorities going forward. Those of you that don't get it, and there's no way to know who will or will not, that's what ensures it is scientifically reliable and statistically reliable. We will also have the online survey on carlsbadparksplan.com. Both of these will be launched sometime in January and February. Since you've registered today, we have your email addresses. Communications will reach out and let you know when the SurveyMonkey survey is launched on the website, so that you or anybody else who you know would like to participate, you can certainly share the link with them. Taking all that input, starting to prioritize programs, amenities, facility needs as well, will then help shape the recreation program plan and the senior recreation program plan over the next 4 to 5 months. So between now and the end of April, early May, we will finish the public input process, statistically and online surveys, and then the recreation program plans, as well as a senior recreation program plan. So I want to thank you all for your time. I am going to stop sharing here, but just another reminder for carlsbadparksplan.com. I'm looking up here as well, and I see a few questions here. So let me stop sharing, and Kyle and I can turn our cameras on. So I've seen a lot of comments here. I have an anonymous attendee talking about the dual use. And what is interesting to me, though, is I remember during the previous plan that pickleball players told me specifically they wanted dedicated pickleball courts and didn't want to share. So it's interesting, I see this now where there is move back to wanting to share more of the tennis courts, versus what I see around the country is more people talking about having dedicated courts as well, versus having to share too. So I hear that as well. Kyle, I'm not sure about the petition in terms of indoor pickleball at Calaveras. Do you want to speak to that?
I can just speak generally to it. I'm not aware of this individual's initial request, but generally speaking, the city council can waive fees. Staff is not able to do so. Having said that, it's something we can certainly look into and get back to that party if they would like to provide information to our Recreation Services Manager, Mike Pacheco. He is available 760-434-2858 or Mike.Pacheco@carlsbadca.gov.
And Mike, if you want to just type your email in the group here as well in the chat, please do so. Also, just know that on the project website, carlsbadparksplan.com, there is a contact us and information as well. So any comments you want to share through that, we will get it and they will all be captured within the master plan's input as well. So again, it's on a Saturday, it's a weekend. I know your time is important. Thank you all so much for participating, for being engaged as well. And also for your notes, for a number of you that shared, just in terms of appreciating the staff for the great projects and the work done. We will continue to listen to you and make the best recommendations we can. And I know staff and I know the track record over the years, they will implement as fast and as best as possible. So have a wonderful weekend. Best for the holidays to everybody. And we will be in touch as well soon. Thank you all. Bye now.
Thank you.